You've got some super-duper little bits of pieces of jewellery here.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Would you rather I said £4,000 today?
We're not going to sell it, obviously.
No.
I love antique jewellery, and when I see a brooch like this in the box, it really gets to me. And when we look at this box here, to me, that looks a little bit like a kind of a horse's hoof. It doesn't look like a box from this country. It looks like a European box, just in its style and in its construction. But, of course, when we reveal what's inside the box, it does it full justice, doesn't it? What an absolutely fantastic garnet bracelet that is. You were going to tell me something about the actual place where you think it may have come from originally.
Apparently, my great-great-grandmother was left them by her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law had, or somebody in her family before that, had bought them from the Swedish royal family sometime during the 19th century, apparently, and they've become known as the crown jewels in our family.
Quite justifiably.
Yeah.
These are garnets, though, really of a very deep blood red colour. Now, that gemstone, the garnet, is quite a popular stone. In the 19th century, you get it in jewellery in Germany, in Czechoslovakia, and it would be quite normal to assume that you'd also get this kind of stone set in jewellery in perhaps Stockholm, you know, in Sweden. Now, we can't confirm for certain about the royal connection, can we?
No.
It's family hearsay.
Yes.
Look at the garnets, first of all. You'll see that they're all faceted individually. You've got these pear-shaped stones at the side of the frame, smaller ones in towards the centre, and then the cabochon cut right in the middle. These are called pyrope stones, but they're garnets of a particular density of colour, and that's what makes them so beautiful. Now, with all those garnets, the one that really dwarfs them all is this massive faceted garnet in the middle of the bangle, in a border of little half pearls, and then you've got some little drops for the ears here. Quite often with this kind of jewellery, the settings, the gold mounts, are actually quite low-grade gold. So it's kind of, if you like, 9-carat gold mountings, which sort of doesn't really do justice to the sheer expanse and beauty of the set. Do you wear this at all?
I can't wear the bracelet. It's a bit small and therefore quite wide and quite uncomfortable. And I've never had an occasion where I've needed something that splendid.
Total value for this set, £4,000 to £5,000.
That's fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Now, before I come on to this rather curious plum-coloured box, let's have a little chat about the ring first, which is fairly straightforward. And there's a connection between the gentleman in the photograph, isn't there, and the ring. Tell me what that connection might be.
Originally, the ring was actually a tie pin, and it was presented to my grandfather, the picture at the back there, who was Thomas Walker. He was a footman at Buckingham Palace, and he was a footman to King George V. When the war was declared, he had to go out to France as a dispatch rider. And then King George V came out to visit the troops, and he came on horseback. And when he came near the troops all clapped and cheered, and his horse reared, and he fell quite heavily. And fortunately, my grandfather was there, and he recognised him because he'd been his footman, and he carried him to safety in a chateau.
So he was quite badly hurt?
He was actually quite badly hurt, and he was actually awarded the Victoria Medal, and then as a personal present was a tie pin, and then that was made into a ring for my mother to wear.
So, a fairly extraordinary, singular event. It's a great story. The ring itself has got a cipher, and you can see here George V, G with a V, George V with the crown surmount above it. He enamelled in blue and white and tiny diamond chips. It's worn, it's scratched, but it has a unique story. If I were to say that I'm sure that a collector, knowing the background to it, would pay £800 to £1,200 for it. Now let's move on to this rather, I have to say, worn box with gold tooling round the edge, and in the centre, an interesting little cipher. That little gold cipher tells me that is something that goes back, dare I say, to the Russian royal family, to the Tsar. Tell me a bit about that and what the connection is between this and the lady on the left.
Well, the lady on the left was called Jean Jewellery. She worked at Buckingham Palace as well. And when Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, came over in 1908, she was the person who looked after his room and him. And when he left, he presented her with the brooch that's inside that box.
Now, one little point there. You mentioned 1908, that it was the Tsar who came over to London, Buckingham Palace. I couldn't find a record of that, but I wonder if it's possible in 1908 the Tsar's mother came over and stayed at Buckingham Palace with her sister, who was, of course, the Queen to Edward VII. Right, the brooch itself. 2 blue stones, sapphires. The little leaves underneath, well, they're green gold. Now, that means they've put a bit of silver in to create the green colour. So that's a bit of subtlety. OK, well, let's have a little look at the brooch now. On the pin, did you see there a little tiny impression halfway along the pin? It's a monogram that tells me that this was made by a craftsman called Thielemann. And he was a craftsman who did work for, guess who? Peter Carl Fabergé.
Ah.
It's in the original presentation case. It's in absolutely pristine condition. Subject to the affirmation of this connection directly through to the Tsar, or maybe to his mother, £8,000 to £12,000.
Goodness.
So Jean and Thomas left a legacy that today has matured into something quite significant. I congratulate you.
Thank you so much.
You know, I'd like to think that most people who would look at this ring would consider it to be very pretty. Do you not think it's a very pretty ring?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Naturalistic, I suppose, might be a word to describe it. You've got a cushion-shaped blue stone in the middle, surrounded by little green beads, with 3 separate sections of further smaller blue stones. What do you know about it?
My grandmother was one of 14, and her eldest sister went to become a companion to a lady in the early 1900s. And she stayed with her for, I think, the rest of her
I think the rest of her life, yeah. She went there to earn a living, to send money back to the rest of the family so that they could live. So she was a companion to this very wealthy lady in Kensington. They lived in Sheffield Terrace in Kensington.
What do you know about it? Because you know a little bit about it, don't you? At least you think you know a little bit about it.
So we think it's a Sybil Dunlop ring because Sybil Dunlop had a shop in Kensington High Street. And it was always called the Sybil Dunlop ring.
Yeah.
She was highly successful. She went right through the 1920s and 1930s producing this kind of jewellery. She introduced a style, the carpet of gems, as it was known, and it became her sort of name, her reputation. And she had tremendous business sense in tandem with technical virtuosity. She understood colour. She introduced lots and lots of different colourful gemstones. Now, OK, should we talk about what the stones are? The largest stone in the centre is a cushion-shaped Sri Lankan sapphire. How do I know that? Because they are characteristically very, very pale blue colour. First good point.
Yes.
Second point, the small trefoils at the cardinal points are smaller round sapphires. What I like about it are the green beads, don't you?
Yes.
I just think they're so pretty. They are green chalcedony, which is a natural green hard stone, like agate, if you like. This example is not signed, but I'm absolutely confident that it's by her. Sybil made these beautiful rings, bracelets and necklaces, and it so much screams her style. All right, so shall we now talk a little bit about what I think it's worth? I think the sapphire probably weighs around about, say, 4 carats, maybe 4.5 carats. But it's all about the Dunlop name, this particular ring. So I think that if you were to sell it at auction, it would make something in the region of £2,500 to £3,000.
Wow. Oh, gosh. We're not going to sell it, obviously.
No, I don't think you will.
No. brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that, that it was hers. That,
Exactly.
That the story was true.
Yes, yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I was doing a valuation for a customer and we were chatting and she said to me, tell me something, what's the most important feature about a piece of jewellery? And I said to her, do you know something? It's how wearable the item is. Now, these two pieces of jewellery are incredibly wearable. They were made in totally different countries, both made in around about 1905. Now, what's the background story with them?
I inherited them from an elderly neighbour. She in turn got them from her maiden aunt, who did a lot of private nursing. If she hadn't killed anybody off in the process, they usually gave her a parting gift.
Well, as far as the story about killing them off is concerned, I'll set that one to one side. All right, well, let's take the small one first at the bottom. Brooch, it is enamelled. It is fashioned as a heart. In the middle is a flower. The flower is set with a sapphire in a border of half pearls. Where would it have been made? In this country.
Right.
So that's that. Now, we'll leave that one. Let's have a look at the piece at the top. This is very, very similar because of the colours, but a totally different piece. Now, do you see here at the top, there's a little gold suspension ring. Now, that is stamped with a little mark 56, which tells me it is Russian. The flower, isn't it sweet? Do you agree?
I do. I haven't worn it more than a couple of times.
Well, I'm glad you haven't worn it very much because it's also in surprisingly good condition as well. Now, can you see the two little leaves are set with sparkly white stones? Tiny chips of, guess what? They're diamonds. Little rose-cut diamonds.
Right.
And a little bud of ruby. I think you'll find that's probably a Russian ruby.
All right.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about what their potential value is. Have you ever had them valued?
Well, I did take them to Cardiff and showed a local dealer.
Right.
And he offered me £180 for the both of them.
All right. This little sentimental brooch is very sweet. That would sell in auction for probably £250 to £300. So there's your offer in one piece. The Russian 1905 pendant at auction, talking about £1,000 for it.
Good gosh.
You've got some super duper little bits of pieces of jewellery here.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Inside this very unprepossessing cardboard box is an absolutely wonderful pendant. What an opal that is. It's perfect. With opals, you often get cracks and chips and bits of wear, but I've looked at it and there's no sort of cracks and chips there at all. So let's hear a little bit more about the background, please. You must tell me.
So this was gifted to me for my 18th birthday, so not that long ago.
At all, no.
At all. From a very dear family friend who we always affectionately called Nana. And the story that I was told was that her mother went to Australia at the end of sort of late 1800s, early 1900s, and she came back to Belfast with some beautiful opals and they were made into this jewellery. As an 18-year-old, you appreciate the beauty, but it's not really your taste. But I've just kept it and I love it, but I'm too afraid to wear it because it's just so beautiful.
I can understand that. Of course, it's made to be worn. All right, well, let's talk about the stone itself. You mentioned, of course, it comes from Australia, South Australia. They're called black opals. Although it's got this very deep, vibrant blue colour, they're called black opals. The trick about them is to see how many different plays of rainbow colour they've got.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. And can you see it's very well distributed? What we look for are the reds and the yellows and the tangerines. Those are the key colours, as well as the sort of body colour of blue and green. It's a very, very vibrant stone indeed. It's a very unusual shape. The reason I think it's triangular is that I think it follows the shape of the stone in the native rock. It's got it all. The next question is, how old is the piece of jewellery? And the piece of jewellery itself is around about 1915.
Ah, okay.
It's arts and crafts. Now, for the first time, I'm going to take it out of the box to show the back of it, because the back of it is actually plain gold. It's stamped at the back with the mark 15 for 15 carat.
Oh.
Now, I'm going to say one little tiny caveat to you. With opals, sometimes, rarely, they put a back plate of darkening material to make them look a slightly better colour. I don't think you need to worry. I think I've looked at it very carefully with my lens, and I think it's absolutely right. So let's look at it at the front again. Now, you can hear I am very keen on this, can't you? So, ever had it valued?
When I received it for my birthday, we had it valued. It was maybe about £700.
Perfectly justifiable figure.
Yeah.
Would you rather I said £4,000 today?
Very calm. Yes, that would be very good.
Good. All right. Well, there we are then. I'm telling you. I think it's a really, really beautiful opal.
Oh, thank you.
And I see a lot of opals on the Antiques Roadshow. Boy, this one talks to me. It's a good one. So thank you very much indeed.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.